look at this issue. The social justice lawyer, in a book called Just Mercy, a guy called Brian Stevenson said this: you can't understand the important things from a distance, you have to get close. For the UK church to really understand racial injustice and how that impacts the community and what we are meant to do about that, we're going to have to get closer to the issue in a way that we've never really done before. And we have to be honest, we're in a situation, this kairos moment, where the opportunity, the window is open for the UK church to engage in that way, show less apathy and more empathy in the way that we've not done before. 12 words which will always stay with me are this: he is dead, Ben. Myron has been stabbed and he is dead. That was a text I got from one of my closest friends about his stepson, a young man called Myron Yard, who was murdered in southeast London in New Cross in 2016. I'd known Myron since he was 1 year old, and Myron's death was the impetus to launch the charity Power to Fight. You see, knife crime in London disproportionately impacts black people. I will never say or subscribe to the misconception that knife crime is a solely black issue, but in areas like London, it disproportionately kills black and brown children. Yet the response from the UK church in this area of knife crime has been slow to non-existent. And the same can be said with the fight for racial injustice. And in the light of George Floyd, the time for silence is over. Up until George Floyd's murder, if you even whispered racism in a context of a church, people wouldn't quite know what to do. While some parts of the church in the US have historically been voices of challenge to societal injustices impacting black people, we think of the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Obviously, Martin Luther King comes to mind. The UK church has appeared to be very silent on the issue. The effects of issues such as the increase in racism and hate crime, particularly after Brexit, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, xenophobia, extremism, and immigration problems of people of colour are not often seen as pulpit-worthy topics, but are faced in the daily life of ethnically diverse communities. So here's some questions. Could this apparent lack of engagement from the local church be a clue to why some black and brown people struggle to feel at home in white majority churches? Can we attempt to build racially diverse churches while ignoring race and systemic racism as factors in societal issues? Can silence on these matters, instead of promoting reconciliation, actually reinforce feelings of alienation and voicelessness? Could traditional churches learn and adapt their social action strategies to help create a diverse and integrated congregation? You see, it's very much about social justice or social welfare. There is a well-known African proverb, well, at least I think it's African. It always sounds better when you say African proverb, so we'll go with that. A well-known African proverb about a man who was walking past a river and saw a child drowning, and he jumped in and saved that child. The next day, he was walking along the same patch and he walked past the river and he saw two children drowning, and he jumped in and saved them. The next day, the same guy was walking and he saw three children, and this time he was only able to save two. The next day, he saw four children, and so on. So he suddenly thought to himself, do you know what? I can't do this on my own. I need to get the rest of the village involved. And before you knew it, day after day, more children were being found in the river and more people were beginning to help. And they were saving a lot. Not all, but they were saving a lot of them. Until one guy I don't know, maybe he had a degree. Maybe he was a wise elder. Or maybe she was a wise elder or a wise person in the village. Walked past and said, I like what we're doing, but what about if we go upstream and find out who's throwing the children in the river in the first place? You see, is the UK church's approach to social action like the first half of this African proverb? Is there a tendency for the church to put time, energy, and resources in the wrong places, which leads to burnout, firefighting, and a community dissatisfied with the efforts of the church because the real societal issues are not being addressed?